Welcome into Steelers Talk. I am your host, Jack Sperry, and today we're going to be breaking down the 8 things on my offseason checklist for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2025 to help this team get back into Super Bowl contention starting next season. Before we get into the content today, kick us off down there in the comments section by answering today's question. Should the Steelers blow it up and rebuild this offseason? Do you think it's time for a fresh start here in Pittsburgh and embrace a rebuild, or do you think they should continue to try to win now and try to get Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and others a Super Bowl championship here in the Steel City? Simply give me a yes or a no down there in the comments section to let me know your thoughts. So I think whether you like it or not, guys, whether we like it or not, I don't think the Steelers are going to be looking to rebuild, blow things up, and try to start fresh this offseason. I think them bringing back Mike Tomlin and most likely bringing back Arthur Smith and all of their top coaches this offseason certainly indicates that this team thinks they can win and can win championships with this current team as assembled right now, and just a couple of tweaks are needed to make that final last push to potentially be playing on divisional weekend and on AFC Championship weekend and on Super Bowl weekend. And, you know, I do think that the reason why that is because they want to try and get Cam Hayward a championship before he retires. And I don't think they're going to rebuild until he retires. And Cam has talked about how he wants 2 more seasons, 2025, 2026, and it will likely be it for his career. He's got 2 years left on his current contract, and he's indicated that these are going to be the 2 final years of his contract before he retires. So the Steelers are going to try to get him, try to get TJ Watt, try to get Minkah Fitzpatrick a title over the next 2 years. So the clock is ticking. Steelers have 2 years to get it right before I think that they officially blow things up, start fresh with a new head coach. But during this kind of final push to try to get Captain Cam and others that have been with this team a long time a Super Bowl championship, I would expect Mike Tomlin to be here as the head coach. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer here before I get into my checklist today of 8 things that the Steelers need to do. I really do think that I don't think that necessarily I didn't include anything that wasn't realistic. All right, all these things that I'm putting on here, I think, are things that the Steelers can 100% do, and I didn't include anything like firing Mike Tomlin or trading T.J. Watt or anything that they're just not going to do on today's list. So let's start off here with my first item on the checklist, which is to make some vital coaching changes. Now, it sounds like Mike Tomlin's not going to be going anywhere. It sounds like unless he gets the New York Jets job, Arthur Smith will be back as the offensive coordinator. But I think a couple of assistants that I think are pretty easy firings that you need to replace. The offensive line coach, Pat Meyer, has done a terrible job at developing talent on the offensive line while he's been here. I would fire him. And then Grady Brown, the defensive backs coach, I don't think has done a very good job here either. Dante Jackson didn't do a great job. Cam Sutton came in. And what was the big issue on defense this year for the Pittsburgh Steelers on that side of the ball? It was the secondary kind of not miscommunications, all these different things not being able to play together, and that's a little bit on the defensive backs coach in my opinion. So these are the 2 guys that I would for sure fire if I were the Pittsburgh Steelers, and honestly I think they'd be fine going with other changes at other positional coaches as well, but these are the 2 main ones that I want Mike Tomlin to make this offseason. The second thing on my offseason checklist here is to develop the young offensive line. And this is going to be vital because in my opinion, and I talked about this at my at-home video yesterday, guys, I think that the X factor for this offseason is whether or not the Steelers can go from a bottom 5 run game with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren and this really young, inexperienced offensive line to a top 5 rushing offense by getting a new running back and really doing a good job, developing this very talented but very young and inexperienced offensive line. Broderick Jones is most likely going to be moving back over to left tackle. That's the Steelers' vision for him, and since he hasn't gotten his shot on that side, I think he's going to get his shot. I think Sayamalu and Frazier are really solid pieces in the middle of the offensive interior line, but then Mason McCormick and Troy Fautano also have questions as well. So the questions on this offensive line heading into next year is A, will Broderick Jones play better on the left side? That's where he played his entire life before coming to Pittsburgh. The Steelers moved him over to right tackle for the first 2 years of his career, and frankly, he hasn't played very well on that side. He needs to play a lot better, and hopefully, now that he's going going back to the other side where he's more comfortable, he's going to turn into the player, and the first-round caliber player that the Steelers drafted him to be. Then Mason McCormick, speaking of moving people off of their college positions, McCormick played left guard at South Dakota State, and the plan was always to let James Daniels walk this free agency and then have McCormick step in as the new starting right guard in 2025. But because James got injured, that expedited the process, and McCormick had to play right guard. And honestly, especially down the stretch, he did not play very well, guys. But give him a full offseason. Give him a full offseason here to really develop his game on the right side of the offensive line. He still has all the talent in the world to make this thing work on the right side, in my opinion. Then the big question for Troy Fautano is not necessarily is he a good player. I'm very confident that he is a good player. The question for me is, will he stay healthy? If he can't stay healthy, obviously that's going to really wreck his career, and it's going to wreck the 2025 season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it's very important that Troy Fautano finds a way to stay healthy and on the field next year. And, I think that the Steelers truly need all three of those question marks along the offensive line to hit. I think you need Broderick Jones to be a solid left tackle. I think you need Mason McCormick to really step up his game at right guard if that's going to be the plan. And then Fautano needs to stay healthy. If all three of those things can happen, I think the Steelers' offensive line can be really, really good next year. If you don't hit on all three of those things, I think this is going to be a very limited offensive line, and it's going to limit the Steelers as a whole next season. Then along with the offensive line, the other piece to really building up this run game is to find the dynamic playmaker in the run game that this team has been missing. With all due respect to Najee Harris, he has not been that guy. He's a fine running back. He can fight for extra yardage, all that stuff, but he's not getting big chunks. He's not making explosive plays regularly. And I think the Steelers need to go out and get a legit number one running back. Now, the top free agency options, I don't necessarily love. J.K. Dobbins can't stay healthy. And then out of the rest of these guys, I'm not sure if any of them are true number one dynamic talents. Nick Chubb used to be, but after multiple injuries, I think that he is kind of cooked. I think that the way that the Steelers need to go about addressing this position is they need to use an early draft pick on a superstar caliber running back, because the things that we've learned about running backs heading into the league, guys, is that they can be star quality players right out of the box, all right? So I think that you can find your guy in the draft, you go after him, and then you take him early, whether it be round 1 or round 2, maybe round 3 if you get lucky. These are the top running back prospects I have on my radar right now. I would love for Ashton Janty to be the new RB1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Will he make it to our pick? Probably not. Steelers might even have to trade up if they really want Janty. But there's also some other really good options. Omar and Hampton, Cam Scadaboo, Dylan Sampson, Caleb Johnson, all very good players that could be true number ones with the Steelers next year. And the reality of the situation, guys, is that if Pittsburgh fails to turn their rushing attack around next year and, they're bottom 5, bottom 10 in rushing offense again next year, they're not going to be a very good football team, and they're going to be a limited offense once again. And at best, they're probably losing in the first round of the playoffs. Once again, the Steelers want to build this team around the run game, and if they once again fail to do that next year, unfortunately, it's going to be more of the same here in the Steel City. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section for today's pinned comment. What's your confidence level that the Steelers will have a top 5 run game next year? Put it on a scale of 1, meaning not confident whatsoever, to 10, meaning I'm extremely confident they're going to be able to move this thing forward. Make sure you get down there in the comment section, answer today's pinned question while I'm talking about today's sponsor at Prize Picks. And Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action all football season long. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Sign up today and get $50 instantly, and you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, where every Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. You guys can see here for the national championship game on Monday night, I'm taking the more on Will Howard passing yards. I'm taking the less on Riley Leonard passing yards. And I'm taking the less on Jeremiah Smith receiving yards. So you guys can get in on the action here for the college football playoff national championship or any other game here coming up by downloading the Prize Picks app today and using code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup when you download the Prize Picks app today. Prize Picks, run your game. The fourth thing that the Steelers are going to need to do this offseason is find a competent quarterback to lead this offense. And, I do think that running back is actually going to be a little bit more significant of a change for the Steelers this offseason than the quarterback position. I think you have to get the running back position right, and you have to get the O-line right before you get the quarterback right, which is weird to say because quarterback is such an important position. But that doesn't mean that a quarterback isn't important, right? You got to get somebody that's competent, that can throw the ball down the field, that can handle the elements of the AFC North, all these different things, and can deliver in the clutch when needed. These are probably the most likely quarterback options for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They could run it back with either Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. Sam Darnold looks like he's going to be available potentially via trade this offseason because I think the Steelers are going to try and tag and trade him. Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr are other outside options that could become available for the Steelers. Like I said, guys, fixing the run game is going to be more important than picking one of these guys to be your quarterback, but I think that you got to pick the right guy as well at the quarterback position if you want to go far in the National Football League playoffs next year. Another thing that the Steelers need to do in terms of the passing game is to establish their number one receiver. Who is it going to be? Are they going to bring back George Pickens or are they going to trade him? That is going to be the big question this offseason is what the Steelers do with GP because everybody knows Pickens is one of the most physically talented receivers in all of football. He's great after the catch. I think he's a better route runner than people give him credit for, at least when he's trying. And, of course, he's got that incredible ability to win 50-50 balls down the sideline. So, I think that he still fits this offense, and I think if he can turn around his behavior issues and punctuality and professionalism, I think the Steelers could certainly bring him back. But unfortunately, 3 years into his NFL journey and he's still having punctuality issues and professionalism issues, I think the Steelers will end up trading him this offseason. And they're going to be bringing in a new number one wide receiver, and I would prefer that number one receiver to be a veteran. That doesn't mean you can't draft another outside receiver, but I do think you want to get one of these five gentlemen right here, the guys that are going to be free agents that could be legitimate number one receivers in this Arthur Smith-led offense. I got my eyes on Davante Adams in particular here. I think that he would be an excellent fit with the Pittsburgh Steelers offense led by Arthur Smith. But alongside getting a veteran number one receiver presence, George Pickens or otherwise, I do think the Steelers need to draft another true presence on the outside, another bigger body, another deep threat, another guy that can win with his route running, all that different stuff. And, there's a lot of different options for the Pittsburgh Steelers in terms of drafting a number two outside receiver this offseason. And, there's going to be opportunities in rounds 1, 2, and maybe even 3 to get a good player at this position. Somebody that I think would be an excellent fit in this offense is Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, especially if you get a true route runner type like Davante Adams to be the veteran number one receiver. There's a lot of good options out there, guys, and I do think the Steelers will spend a day 2 draft pick or higher on a wide receiver. Another thing the Steelers need to do this offseason is fix the cornerback room. And I think it's more than just getting the right number 2 outside corner. I also think you have to get the right nickel corner as well. I think that Beanie Bishop Jr. is undersized, and I think he'd be a good backup with this team. I don't know if you trust Beanie Bishop Jr. to be the starting slot moving forward here in Pittsburgh. For me, I would address both of those positions this offseason. Now, another thing that I'd love to see the Steelers do is add a bona fide nose tackle. All right, and the reason why I say that is not because I don't like Keanu Benton. In fact, I love Keanu Benton, but him being the nose tackle, he has to take on a lot of double teams. He's kind of delegated to be more of a true run stuffing defender. And Keanu Benton's biggest strength, and it always has been, even going back to his days in Wisconsin and college, has been penetration. It's been pass rushing. And, he's been that type of game-wrecking force as a pass rusher before, and he's not really allowed to do that as a nose tackle just over 300 pounds. So what I would do is I'd get a true run-stuffing nose tackle in the middle of the defense so I can move Keanu Benton to 5 technique and even 3 technique technique in certain formations so that he can be more of a penetrator and be more of a pass rusher and be a game-wrecking force in that way. And eventually, I want Keanu Benton to take over for Cam Hayward. I mean, Cam's going to be here for another 2 years, and then you need to have a plan at 3 technique moving forward. And I think Keanu Benton is absolutely the right body type, absolutely the right skill set to be able to take over for Captain Cam in that spot once he eventually hangs up the cleats. And I think that the Steelers need to put that plan into motion as soon as they can. So it's a Real One roll call here on Steelers Talk right now. If you made it to the end of today's video, that makes you a Real One. So let me know who all the Real Ones are down there in the comments section by spamming Real One down there in the comments to identify yourselves, and I greatly appreciate your guys' support. Don't forget to click that subscribe button if you haven't already for more Steelers content coming out this weekend.